Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 1985 teen coming of age comedy, Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Now, for a film that clearly was just made as a cash grab and a cash in on the Cyndi Lauper song of the same name, this is better than it has any right being. That being said, it's still just mediocre. It's still just a so-so time waster at best. But considering the origin of this entire film and this entire endeavor, it could have been so much worse. Now, before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on this film, I want to give a special shout out yet again to Sean for requesting another review. And if there's another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal or to my Patreon. The link to both is in the video description down below, and I will try to get to your request as soon as I possibly can. Now, Girls Just Want to Have Fun is directed by Alan Metter. And this was his directorial debut. Prior to this, he directed a handful of music videos for Olivia Newton-John. And after this, he would go on to direct films like Back to School and Moving and Police Academy, Mission to Moscow. But this is not a bad debut. I thought he did a pretty decent job here. I think the fact that he got a lot of experience prior to this doing music videos definitely was something that gave him the upper hand with this particular project. Because in a lot of ways, this film is just one big long music video anyway. In terms of the way that the film is shot, in terms of just the film in general. And that was definitely something that he was familiar with. So he didn't really have to flex a lot of new muscles here. And I think that definitely helped him. And it also is a project and an overall film that you could have a filmmaker come in and just do a fine job. And that's really all that you need for it to be what they're trying to make the film uh, be in the end. So I think while the direction at times definitely does show the limitations of the film's budget and it can be a bit repetitive in terms of the framing or the shot selection, it's it's something that does showcase the rhythm of the dancers very well, and it's got a good sense of kinetic energy to it. And for a film that has a lot of sequences that are taking place during the taping of a dance television show called Dance TV, you definitely need some very kinetic direction. And I feel that Metter did provide that for this film. But there's not a lot of unique or original sort of camera work in this in terms of pan zooms or wide shots or uh, tight shots or traveling shots or anything of that sort. It's very standard fare when it comes to the visuals. At points, like it's almost indistinguishable from your average episode of Fame. But it works for what the film is trying to do for the most part, and it's not a distraction. Like it's consistently average, but there aren't really any moments where it's glaringly bad either. So, I think for a first time directing, Metter did a mad job, but a mad job for a first time director is pretty good. Now, the film is written by Amy Spies, and I don't know what else she wrote, but I guess she threw in a lot of personal experiences here when it comes to her childhood and everything, and that definitely does add some authenticity to this overall script and story. And she wanted to tell a story that focused on girls in a way that a lot of films at the time didn't really necessarily do. But I don't really feel that she did anything with this that was that out of the ordinary, despite the attempts that she was trying to make in terms of trying to do something a little bit more out of the box with this particular script. The movie and its story is focused primarily on two girls, two friends, um, Janie and Lynn, and they both go to this private school. And Janie befriends Lynn. They become close friends. Uh, and Janie and Lynn are both massive fans of this television show called Dance TV. And Janie, she is actually a really talented dancer. But like with a lot of other films of this type, she's got a father who is very domineering isn't the right word, but he's he's very controlling of her and doesn't want her to be out late at night for too long. In a lot of ways, he's really treating her like she's in the military, and that's because he is a military man. So there's a lot of that going on. Very strict home life, and Lynn is the wild card, and she ultimately is what inspires Lynn to finally break out of her shell. And Lynn comes with this idea of, hey, let's go to the auditions for Dance TV and see what happens. And Lynn and Janie go to the audition, and Janie actually becomes one of the finalists, along with this boy named Jeff. And Janie starts having a crush on him, and there is definitely a romantic subplot in this that involves Janie and Jeff, especially once that they are paired up as partners for the dance uh, auditions and for the ultimate competition. And there's a lot of moments in this that just involve a lot of shenanigans involving the girls. Uh, there's a villain of sorts who is this bitchy rich girl named Natalie, and her dad is like a really rich and powerful guy in the neighborhood, and she's using the influence that her father has to cheat, and she's one of the finalists too for the dance TV competition. And of course, because of Janie's strict home life, she has to sneak out at night to go practice with her dance partner Jeff, and ultimately her father finds out about it, and she winds up becoming grounded. Uh, Jeff winds up quitting uh, and giving up on the dance competition because um, Natalie convinces her father to essentially strong arm the competition. And since Jeff's father works for a company that Mr. Sands owns, Mr. Sands shows up and basically is like, hey, if you go to the dance competition, your father could lose his job. And that leads to a nice moment between Jeff and his dad when his dad's like, "No, just go. I'll be all right." And that is honestly a pretty common thing and a common element in this script is these nice heartwarming moments. You could look at them as being like an after school special kind of thing, but I think for this kind of film, it's sweet and it's a good message. It really is. There are some other points though where it's a bit off. Like there's this stuff with Jeff's younger sister, I think. I think that's who it is. Yeah, Jeff's younger sister Maggie. And she's like 12 years old and the way that she's written, she's not acting her age and it's awkward. And I think that's something that the writer was trying to throw in there because she has personal experience with that and there's probably girls around that age who don't want to act their age and want to be adults. But just the way that things were set up and written, it was just very awkward and weird with her trying to act like she's older than she is and trying to flirt with people and all this other stuff. It was just kind of off. That was like one of the few things about this that didn't really feel like it was that efficient when it comes to the overall plot. Because a lot of the other stuff I felt worked well for what they were trying to do. I felt the connection and the friendship between Janie and Lynn was fun and was well put together for the most part. They had some fun moments together. They were a fun pair. Uh, I think that Janie and Jeff actually were a cute couple, and the script did a good job really establishing that they worked together not only as dance partners, but as partners in love. And I like the fact that you get a glimpse of the parents and the home life, and it could easily go into like the abusive territory, but it never really goes there, which I definitely did appreciate. And there's a lot of characters in this, but it definitely feels like the script did a good job in terms of giving a lot of these characters their own distinct moments and their own little arcs, or at least repeated gags for some of them, like Jonathan Silverman's character, Drew. So they definitely feel like they have something to do and they're not just there and given nothing to do, but just stand there or maybe say a line or two. Like, I definitely do appreciate that about the script. But it is one of those stories, too, though, that it's pretty predictable, plays out precisely how you would expect it would. Oh, Janie and Jeff, they make the finals. And what? They're going to lose? Of course they're not going to lose. They're going to win and they're going to become the new couple that's going to dance on dance TV. One unexpected thing though is that Lynn winds up becoming the one of the new hostesses for the show because the original hostess who uh, dresses in these extravagant outfits and reads off the news quit. So then Lynn winds up taking her place, which I thought that was definitely a fun little touch. But yeah, the whole dance competition, it ends exactly how you think it's going to. The bitchy rich girl and her partner, Natalie seems like she's going to be a shoe-in and win. Of course she doesn't, and she loses. And you think, oh, Janie's father, Colonel Glenn, he's going to try to put a stop to the dance competition, but then he stops and actually watches his daughter dance and sees how good she is, and then decides to stop his whole plan of stopping the taping, and he's proud of her. You know, there's just so many things about this that are just very, very cliched. But that's something that I think isn't necessarily a negative, though, for this kind of story, because that's the expectation. That's what you're going to get when it comes to this kind of story. You're going to get a lot of these cliches. And you know what? Life is cliched. That's another thing. Like, life itself does have these cliched moments. It's not just something that's just created by a screenwriter. But there isn't a lot of moments in the script, though, that really change things up, though. There's a party sequence at the debutante ball that Natalie is throwing, and Janie and Lynn and Maggie, uh, they wind up getting revenge on Natalie because Natalie did something that got Janie in trouble, and she also was the one that set up Lynn by having her the dance partner uh, make it so she failed the audition, and so they get back at her by making copies of this invitation to her ball and just giving them to all these random punks who are around the neighborhood. And so the punks crash the party. And, you know, it's the upper crust. Um, and they're now face to face with the Mohawk punks in the city, and they're tearing up the room, and they're smashing through the window, and that added a nice bit of energy and an extra added bit of intrigue and fun to the film. A little bit of some unexpected edge that definitely does help the story, but that's about as much edge as you're gonna get. And as a comedy, it's not really that funny. It's charming when it comes to the dynamic between some of the characters. It's actually got a pretty strong love story for the most part between Janie and Jeff. The dance numbers are well executed, have some good performances by the different dancers. It's got some good choreography, but it's not really a film that is going to make you laugh your butt off. A lot of the attempts at comedy are pretty groan inducing uh, and pretty lame. And I could see why some people could watch this and just be like, yeah, this wasn't really that good. But I felt that despite the fact that the screenplay is a bit safe and a bit played out in some elements, I think the characters are written well enough and they're likable enough, and the villain is hateable enough in a fun way that you can definitely get some entertainment out of this plot and this overall story. So I think Amy Spies, despite some moments and some bits that I felt kind of fell a little flat, I think she did a good job writing this. But what really makes this film into a time waster for me is the cast. Like, Sarah Jessica Parker as Janie, she is full of charisma. She's very charismatic in this. And she does a great job playing the shy girl next door. And there are even some moments where she is able to, you know, break free from her, you know, stereotype, you know, the shy girl who is just sheltered and so on and so forth. And she really sells it. Like, she sells both sides of this character. And she does it well. And I think she has a great chemistry with the entire cast. I mean, she works well off of Shannen Doherty. She works well, especially with Helen Hunt, who plays Lynn Stone. And, Lee Montgomery is Jeff. Now, speaking of Helen Hunt, this is a really fun role to see her in because Sarah Jessica Parker, she did stuff like this in Square Pegs. But Helen Hunt, like, I'm used to seeing her in stuff like Twister. I'm used to seeing her in things that are the complete total opposite of this wild child character that she plays in this. And she shows that she can pull that off. And it's not awkward. It's not something that seems like it's an ill-fitting dress for her, so to speak, or a skirt that's not the right size. It fits just right. She plays a good zany, wild child best friend uh, for Janie, for Sarah Jessica Parker's character, and I think Lee Montgomery was great as Jeff. I actually think he did a really good job playing that character. He's the rough and tumble biker type. He's a bit of a loner and a rebel, but he loves to dance. And the whole dancing stuff didn't really feel like it was forced. And I think in large part is because of how well Lee sold it. And I felt that the romantic chemistry between him and Sarah Jessica Parker was really strong. And I just think it was a really solid performance overall by Lee Montgomery as Jeff. And a very young Shannen Doherty, she did a good job too, even though the writing for that character was a bit off. She still left an impression on me, and a pretty positive one too, because I felt like, okay, she's got a certain spunk, a certain charisma to her, and you could definitely see why she would go on to do bigger and better things as she got older, because you could just see that charisma even at a young age. And the supporting cast is good too. I mean, Ed Lauter as a Janie's father, um, Lee Arone as Mrs. Lemsky, or Margaret Howell as Miss Glenn, uh, the evil, slimy, rich father of Natalie, Morgan Woodward as JP Sands, um, and Natalie herself, Holly Gagnier. I thought she really did a great job playing this bitchy, rich villainess that you love to hate. So, yeah. And of course, you also have Jonathan Silverman, who has a small role in this as Jeff's best friend. And actually, I think it's his brother. No, it's not his brother, it's his friend. So it's Jeff's best friend who's like selling t-shirts and trying to put moves on the ladies and failing. Like, it is quite a trip to see Jonathan Silverman this young, and he's definitely playing a dweeb, but he still has that charisma and that charm that he brought to like Weekend at Bernie's and other films later on in his career. And you have a bunch of people who have like uncredited cameos in this. Robert Downey Jr. plays one of the punks that crashed the party. Cyndi Lauper is there in like a blink and you miss it a little cameo as a woman in the diner. Gina Gershon has, I think it's like her screen debut as one of the dancers. You also have Stuart Fratkin, who plays a character named Sam. Stuart Fratkin He was in Teen Wolf 2. He played Styles. He was also in um, Dr. Alien and Ski School and Remote. So yeah, there's a lot of actors and actresses in this cast that deliver some pretty decent performances. And I think that's why people still enjoy this film, why it has a cult following, why people can have fun with this despite its cliches and its campy elements and some of the lame uh, bits, because it's got a capable cast. The cinematography by Thomas E. Ackerman, it's not amazing, but it's fine. The editing by Lorenzo Di Stefano and David Rawlins is not award winning, but it works. The music by Thomas Newman, it's not one of his best scores, but when you do hear it, it fits the film well. It provides the film with the proper vibe. But the soundtrack is the best and the brightest music related aspect for this film. I really like this soundtrack. You got multiple tracks by Rainey, who I think she did some I think she did a track for Iron Eagle. Um you have this song called Shout, Come On and Shout by Alex Brown, that is just infectious and just makes you want to dance every time you hear it. I actually have that song as the song that plays for my alarm in the morning because it just is such a great way to just start the day, get your toes tapping. And I genuinely really enjoy the soundtrack. I think it's a really catchy soundtrack with a lot of fun tracks that fit the film well and are fun to listen to. And it's not a long film either. I mean, that's definitely another thing that helps this movie is, it's only like 90 minutes. So it's not like it's too long or, feels like it's stretching itself past its limits. It's just the right amount of runtime. So, yeah, I mean, if this is the kind of film that you find to be a good time when it comes to these 80s movies, I would definitely recommend checking this one out. If it doesn't interest you that much, then you could probably skip it. But I do feel that it's a film that has some genuine merit, has some aspects of it that actually are pretty good. Um, and yeah, I mean, for a film that's called Girls Just Want to Have Fun, uh, this is definitely more fun than I thought it was going to be. But at the end of the day, it's still just a time waster for me. Like, it's not a film that I'm going to watch again anytime soon. It's not a movie I'm going to bend over backwards to buy on Blu-ray. But it's a film that I'm still glad that I saw, just to see the cast and to uh, hear the soundtrack and just kind of get wrapped up in the whole 80s aesthetic of it and just turn my brain off and just enjoy the cotton candy. But anyway, thanks for watching my review of Girls Just Want to Have Fun. And until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.